So I'm going to continue working, and this time I'm going to be doing a 3/4 view of Maya Angelou. So this demo would also work for this image as well, because their faces are turned slightly different, but the idea is the same, that they're kind of 3/4 view. And you might be a little bit confused because we've actually drawn the features in first before we draw the skull, but that's by design. I really wanted to have you kind of know where the features are going to go first before you draw the skull in. And we'll do that next. Okay, here we go. Maya Angelou. I know why the cage bird sings. Okay, so we've got, let's erase our guidelines. We've already got the face drawn in. If you haven't even gotten to this stage yet, the differences between drawing this egg and the other egg is that this egg was a little wider, because her face is a little wider, and I kind of tilted the egg a little bit this way because her head is tilted, so her chin is a little bit kind of off to the side a bit, and then the middle line was kind of more curved because the head is turned. So you wouldn't draw it straight up and down because we're not looking at her from the front. So kind of curved, and then the same goes for that eye line. It's kind of curved. The nose line and the mouth line are kind of curved. Remember, eyes are halfway down, and then the nose is 1/3 of the way down from the eyes, and then the mouth is another 1/3 of the way down from the nose. So now that we're there, we can do some cleaning up of our guidelines. And a little blending. Charcoal really is my favorite medium to draw in, because I love that I can kind of sculpt it. But that shows you that I'm sort of a sculptor at heart. I like to be able to mold things and subtract and add things. That's why I've never been as interested in like markers and pen art, because you can't erase it and you can't change it. So that's why I like charcoal. All right, so let's start with her eye. Actually, let's start with her nose, which is kind of where I started with Amanda. And I had to move Amanda's nose, but it did kind of help me get started with the eyes. When I draw a nose, I typically draw the tip first, and then I kind of curl that into the nostrils. There's just a couple very simple lines, and then that kind of guides me as to where to put the side of the nose, looking at the space between things. This is a good segue into talking about positive and negative space, and how helpful it is to have an idea of what positive and negative space are. That doesn't look right when I look at it on the screen. So positive space, and this is hard to talk about with an actual face, but positive space is kind of like what you're drawing, and negative space is what's around it. So if I'm drawing the nostril and I'm trying to draw the side of the nose around it, if I look at the space between the nostril and the side of the nose, that helps me draw that nose. So paying attention to where that positive space is and that negative space is really, really key to becoming a good artist that draws realism, right? You're trying to copy something, you're trying to make something look like something that you're looking at. Okay, that's a little better. So So she has some nice cheekbones here and a little crease right there, which will help me kind of figure out where to put other things if I get that drawn in. And then her eyes, generically right here, but I want to get things lined up. So the start of her eye is right in line with her nose, but kind of at an angle and a little bit over. So kind of right there. I'm going to take a stab at putting it right here. And the angle is really, it's harder to do a face that's angled because everything has to be turned, right? If you draw the nose angled and then you draw the eye straight up and down, it's not going to look right. That half iris drawn in. Pay attention. Here's another good use of that negative space. I forgot to erase my eye here. It's always helpful if you do that first. So it's harder to erase in the tiny areas there. That space between the eye line and the actual iris is so important. The placement of the iris in the eye shows you where she's looking. Make sure that both of them are kind of looking in the same direction, because it could look kind of funny if you've got them going in different directions. I sometimes like to draw faces that are a little older because there's a lot of character in that face, a lot of really interesting ways in which that face you can draw that face to make it look like that person. And then she's got some really sculpted eyebrows here. So they're going to come up and around and down. Okay, so that's the first eye there. So I did notice that her eyes are a little wider apart than a full eye length. So it's like an eye and a quarter. Every face is going to be different. We have to really pay attention to the tiny details of that face. I'm going to line it up with her nose here, kind of at an angle, like this comes up at an angle and hits the side of her eye right there. Older faces have their eye. Sometimes the eyelids are doing interesting things. Like they interact with the eye a little differently than younger faces do. Now remember, we're not doing any shading. We're just drawing the outline for now, because we're going to start with the skull. This is actually quite different than I usually teach it. I usually don't ask that students draw a person from a photograph. I ask that they start with the skull and they add the features and it turns into whoever it turns into. But so this is actually the first time we're trying it this way, and I'm hoping that there's some more to learn from this. Trying to draw a person, but starting with the skull and the muscles and everything. I think there's a little bit more to learn than just going for a random skull shape. Okay. Now I gotta draw the mouth in. Now this is tricky. Whenever you draw the side of a face, you're going to see more of one side than the other. So things are going to be a little different looking on this side. You're going to have sort of like a partial view of that side. Give me 1 second, guys. I'm just taking care of something.